another multiply. So this is also a way to display a result on your console, okay, on your screen. This is also another way, but this comes in the form of a pop-up, and this will just log it in the console. So now you can see this, that instead of using the direct values numbers, now we are using a certain name, and this name is not just an ordinary name, but it is a memory allocation where something has been stored inside. So it will just reference to it and then collect whatever has been stored inside and add it to 10 and then display the result here. So let me save this file. After saving it, when we come here, we will see the 63, which is the outcome of the 9 times 7. But when I click OK, it has calculated the value, but this time I'm using a console. So when I go to inspect, when I right click on my page and I go to inspect, and then I select console here, okay, I can see the value that it logged into the console here. Okay, you can see the value showing at the down there, so which is 73. So it picked the 63, added 10 to it, and then now it's showing us the 73 value. Okay, so in a way this has been created in memory. You can't see it with your naked eye, but then it is there. That's how come we are able to retrieve contents from it and display, and it can continue that way and continue and continue, right? So that is how the JavaScript this thing work. Now, so I was talking about the garbage collector, and what happens is this: in the other, some programming languages, especially the ones that are able to actually interact into the low level languages like the C and so on, don't have a way to manage your garbage collection. So it means that what this is going to do is this: the JavaScript is doing is that anytime it senses that a variable you have created, okay, the scope where that variable is supposed to be used has ended, it clears the memory. So it frees the memory for other things to also come in, right? It was an issue, or it was a lot of work when you're working with languages like C, where as you're developing the application, you need also to focus on how to garbage collect some of these variables. Other than that, it would get to a stage where your memory, it would begin to throw errors that there are no memory spaces and so on, or your memories are getting flooded up because there are some variables that have been created that are not being cleared, right? So you have to also manage that as well during the development stages. But when it comes to JavaScript, which is a high level language, automatically they have integrated an automated way of garbage collecting, where you don't have to really concentrate on how to clear your memory anytime a variable is completely or has fully been used. Okay, it does it by itself. It clears it once it detects that the scope of that variable is ended, then it clears it. Now, what do I mean by the scope of the variable? It means that there's a portion where, or in your JavaScript file, when you are creating let's say calculations and defining variables to perform those calculations, there are times that you can also create functional level variables as well, or it can be within the scope of a certain file. Now, once the thing is in this file and we are done using this file, you should clear any variable or any storage we have done from this particular file. If it is a function also, and the function, or it is, let's say, a function that is executing an array, once that function block is ended, you call it and you finish processing it, anything it creates, once it sends it back to the calling method or the calling function, it clears the previous function. The scope has ended. It means no other external code can actually access anything directly within it. So you call it, it processes something, gives it to you, and then once it's done, it has to garbage collect whatever variables it creates to actually perform the calculations before eventually giving you the result. It has to actually automatically clear it, so that it frees the memory for other things to also be stored in there. That is how JavaScript works. As time goes on, we'll be creating some of these things, and then you begin to understand. When we get to the functions and so on, you would really understand them. Then we also have, it says it is dynamic. JavaScript is dynamic, okay, as opposed to static programming languages. Dynamic language executes at runtime many of the things that a static language does not at compile time. So here it's saying that anytime, you see, we don't have to compile anything, unlike other programming languages where you have to build the application before you can run it, like the Java and then the C and so on. You have to build the application and then go from Google. You need to build it before you can be able to actually run it. JavaScript is not like that. The moment you define it in a browser and then you run the browser, it automatically runs whatever code you have created within it. So that particular feature is a dynamic way, okay? It's a dynamic functionality of JavaScript where it does not require that you actually compile this in, or it compiles to the executables in order for it to run on your system. No, JavaScript is not like that, okay? That's why it's stated that it is dynamic. So when you read this, and it says, as opposed to static programming language, a dynamic language executes at runtime many of the things that a static language does not compile to. This has pros and cons though, and it gives us powerful features like dynamic typing, late binding, reflection, functional programming, object runtime alterations, closures, and much more. So it says it even gives you late binding, which means that there are certain values that must be attached to other values in order for them to work. With this, it doesn't even do it during the, like other languages, it has to build it before it can actually run. This is not like that. Even at runtime, it automatically does it by itself. If there is something it has to actually build in order to get something running, it does it at runtime. So that is one thing about it. And then it does not also we'll get to closures, especially when we come to the variables and stuffs. So we'll talk extensively on that. And then there is also another feature of dynamically typed feature that it also holds, where it does not require you to actually specify the data types. Other programming languages will require that if you are declaring a variable, you see this one, I did not declare it to be of a particular type, okay, whether it is an integer or it is a string or it is a boolean. I did not specify anything. I just went ahead to put whatever I want to put in. So for instance, if I create a variable called number or string, okay, and then say I'm putting a number of 20 in there. Now this particular variable is now storing what? This number value. But then at a point when I say number or string equals, then I do this, I am a string, right? You see what I've just done? So I've declared a variable. Let me just console log this. So console log that number. I just will begin to do all these things, so don't worry. Okay, I just want to give you underlining facts about how JavaScripts work. So now when I come here and run this, okay, I can see that let me rerun this again. Okay, so now you can see it. So eventually what's actually loaded was this one, the last thing that I stored in here. Other programming languages will not allow you to do that. You define a type for this particular variable, and it requires that you define a type for it. Okay, so sometimes we say JavaScript is loosely typed. It means it does not require you to specify the type of value you'll be storing in that variable beforehand, before you store something in. Okay, but at a point when we begin to go into Node.js in terms of React and Next.js, we'll also be looking at something called TypeScript. Okay, in order to be type safe, you need another library, or it's another library that sits on top of JavaScript that extends that capability to enforce a type safe, which means that it will allow you to define if a variable should be a string, a number, or an integer, a boolean, and so on. It would define that. But as it sits now, JavaScript on its own does not enforce that, so it's loosely typed. That's why JavaScript is a bit flexible for a lot of people to use, and that is why it is widely used. So we would also look at type safing and so on, and that is why they said it's dynamically typed, which means that you don't really specify what type it is, and I can continue to store in different values in there. At this point I can say it should console log and then say okay, let me do this before. So I can say number or string should be equal to true. So by saying it's equal to true, it means I'm specifying a type of boolean, right? But I did not really specify that at the beginning. Earlier on it was storing a number, now it changed to a string, and then now it's storing a boolean value. So when I console log this, you see that it will show that I am a string, and then later show I am true on the console. So let me do this. You can see, so it says I am a string, and then now it's showing true. The reason why it's not showing the number is that we are not logging the number to the console before we actually change what is inside the memory, okay, or the variable. So it overwrites what is inside the variable before it even logs into the console, and that is why you are only seeing a string before the true here. We also sometimes say that it is loosely typed. It is loosely typed. So as opposed to here it says, as opposed to strong typing, loosely or weakly typed languages do not enforce the type of an object, allowing more flexibility but denying us type safety and type checking. So it's the same thing we have explained, and it says that something that TypeScript would do for us. Okay, good. And then it is also known as JavaScript is also known as what? An interpreted language, which means that it does not need a compilation stage before a program can run. Okay, it does not need a compilation stage. So that is the benefits we can get with JavaScript, and the history comes in, which you can always read about it. Now when you declare a variable in JavaScript, take note that the variable you create in JavaScript is case sensitive. Okay, so now let me just, you see, if I do